Las Vegas. It's more than just a city. It's a feeling. It's that feeling of excitement when you spot the lights of the strip out the airplane window. It's that feeling of awe as you stroll down the boulevard, taking in the sights and sounds. And it's that feeling of satisfaction, knowing that you're in the greatest city in the world. Over 42 million people from around the world share that feeling every year. And I'm one of them. Taking you to the world-famous Vegas Strip and beyond, my name is Jeff. And this is Jeff Does Vegas. After becoming the first ever magician to win on America's Got Talent back in 2014, Matt Franco hit the Las Vegas Strip, where he's been performing his show Magic Reinvented Nightly at the Linq for almost 8 years now. During my last trip to Vegas, I had a chance to go backstage and sit down with Matt and have a conversation. We talked about what got him involved in magic and the support of his family over the course of his career, his experience on America's Got Talent, and the recent revamp of his show at the Linq. Please enjoy my conversation with Matt Franco.
I was 4 years old when my family was watching some sort of magic show on TV, and it wasn't just a standard one. It was one that featured like different types of magicians and different types of magic, and that was when I was hooked from that point forward.
Do you remember who your inspirations were?
I do. They were always not the ones that were the most mainstream or commercial, but the ones that had something really special about them. So one example would be Jeff McBride. And Jeff McBride is a guy who performed at that time in the 90s that I had seen him only in masks. And when the masks came off, his face was painted. I mean, this was an exotic, very serious theatrical act. And then in contrast to that, another big influence for me was a guy named Bill Malone, who is a sleight of hand artist who everything that came out of his mouth was a one-liner and poking fun at the audience, and just everything was humorous and fun. So two examples of very extremely different influences, but equally unique and important influences.
And so do you remember the very first illusion that you ever did?
For people outside of my family?
Or people inside your family, too.
Well, if you're talking just at the house, my dad showed me how to take my thumb off. Right. We all know how to do that, right?
Right.
You can do that?
Yeah.
All right. And you can say that you can because no one can see us right now.
Exactly.
For all they know.
Yeah. I could be making elephants appear in this room right now. You could be too.
I have.
Yeah.
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 They're in the back.
Yeah.
You just can't hear them. They're just out of the mic's range. But the first time I performed that I can recall for people outside of my immediate family would have been show and tell in kindergarten. And I actually remember the person going before me, a little girl bringing in her Barbie doll, and me going off to the back of the room to get my stuff ready because I was on deck, so to speak, and like being nervous, having that feeling of like, oh no, I'm up next and I have to do this. And I vanished a ball from inside of a little vase, which is still a classic sold in almost every magic kit that you can find.
And did you just blow the minds of your classmates and teachers?
We can go with that because no one was there. I don't think. Hopefully, I don't know if any of my classmates are listening to this from then. Maybe. No, I think so. It's. I did the best I could.
Yeah. You mentioned in your show, you talk about it in the show, that family is extremely important to you.
Yes.
Your grandmother is, you mentioned, a huge inspiration for you.
Sure.
And was one of the ones that really pushed you to continue with magic.
Yeah. It was really everyone in the family. If you think about it, my parents in particular, even, how scary it might feel as a parent for your son to say, I'm going to go into this or that, and that's like not the normal track or plan. And to just be fully supportive of it. I would think there would be some fear in that, especially with like a niche, odd interest like magic. Right. So I'm just so thankful that they were strong enough and believed in me enough to be like, of course you can go ahead and do that, and like took me to magic conventions and drove me to shows because I was doing those before I could drive.
Right.
And took me to the closest magic shop, which was a state away. We took a bus to get there. Like it's just kind of crazy to me, having just become a parent myself. 2 months ago, literally. It's crazy to think, like, you have no idea what your children's interests are going to be, but I'm very much for supporting whatever they are, as opposed to thinking like, oh, I want them to do this, or I hope they're into that. I'm excited to see, because no one could have guessed. If you gave them 100 guesses and said, we'll give you $1 million if you can guess what Matt's going to do, they never would have guessed magician, right? So I'm just so thankful that they didn't poo-poo it, if you will.
And not a showbiz family, like
at all.
What are your parents and your brothers do?
Well, one brother is a contractor.
Okay.
And the other one now works here at the show.
Oh, okay.
He generally just has sort of an entrepreneurial spirit, so it's not that magic or showbiz was his initial background either.
Right.
And my folks couldn't be for, my mom was a bookkeeper for my company, for a company, not my company, for a company. And my dad was production managing that company. But when I say production manage, I don't mean production manage, like showbiz production manage.
Right.
So, yeah, the opposite of a show mom. Is what I had. But I wanted one at the time. I was like, Mom, come on, can you get me an agent? Look in the yellow pages.
That's how that works, right?
Yeah.
And is grandma still your biggest fan?
Yeah. So she's 94 and still with us, and still is very sharp. And very supportive, and always looking forward to any photos or video clips or that I send her that I'm working on, or TV things that she can watch from home. She loves that.
Do you try out new material for grandma? Like, do you send her videos and go like, "What do you think? Like, is this work? Is this good? Is this bad? What could I do differently?"
Especially in person.
Yeah.
I mean, rather than asking for direct feedback, I do the same thing I do for a live audience. I listen. Rather than ask pointed questions, and I usually just try to listen to watch to see what the reactions are, and kind of do it that way.
Tell me about America's Got Talent. I mean, this was what really launched you. I mean, you were working professionally, obviously, before that, but this is what really launched you into where you're at now. What was it that prompted you to go out and do America's Got Talent?
I was hoping to get footage of me performing on TV, which I had none of. I thought, well, this would be great. I can say, as seen on America's Got Talent. I never expected to get voted through to the next round, or the one after that, or the one after that, or the one after that.
Right.
So winning it wasn't in my radar. I was just hoping to get some footage. It was kind of funny. I was really pragmatic about it. I was excited to get voted through, but as you mentioned, I was performing professionally at the time. So every time I got voted through, I had to cancel shows to be at the dress rehearsal, to be at the show. And as a contestant on any show, you can't get paid. That's you can't. It's a rule.
Right.
So I would have to cancel shows, and now I'm thinking like, okay, this is great to get voted through, but I'm thinking about bills I have to pay and shows I'm canceling, to the point where even after winning the show, I was like, oh, this is good. I can get back to work, start making some of this money back. I don't think it was till the next day I woke up realizing, okay, I can get back to work. Wait a minute. I just won $1 million. It didn't even occur to me at that point, because it wasn't even on my radar, because to me it wasn't even, something, winning wasn't an option. I didn't think that was a possibility for a magician to do, even, never mind me.
Yeah, it was almost an inconvenience for you.
I was literally doing the live shows at Radio City Music Hall and leaving the next day to go back on the road and do my tour dates that were already contracted at colleges. And then I'd have to race back, cancel a show for the dress rehearsal and the real thing, and then, go back on the road again. So yeah, it was a grueling time, but it worked out well. Yes. Now that I look back, it was really silly for me to be so laser focused on meeting all those contracts.
I love it. And I mean, when you're on a show like that, you're not just competing against other magicians. You're competing against every kind of talent ever. How difficult was that, or how challenging was that to try to be able to stand out?
It's super intimidating, and that's one of America's Got Talent's claims to fame. It's any age, any talent. So you could be competing against animal acts, and and who wants to compete against an adorable animal act? It's seemingly impossible.
Right.
They must have counted the votes wrong, because the animals definitely had to have actually won.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's overwhelming. But the cool thing is, I also made a lot of friends along the way. other amazing acts that were there on the show competing, and as well as the amazing people that produce the show. Made a lot of friends along the way. So really nothing but love from my America's Got Talent family all around, even here 8 years later, you know?
And AGT is really what brought you to Vegas. And I mean, you grew up watching Penn and Teller and David Copperfield and Matt King and being fans of those guys. How mind-blowing is it now you are in this city with your face on billboards and buses and cabs, and you've got a theater named after you? How mind-blowing is it to be here performing in the same city as Penn and Teller and David Copperfield and Matt King?
It's really surreal and hard to put into words. It's one of those things where I can't quite get used to it or understand it. I'm just thankful for the opportunity, but like, I still don't know how to answer that question. It still is like a pinch me moment for me to be here doing it. I mean, it really just, I feels like I'm just going to wake up and go, oh, that was cool, or that wasn't real, or that was a cool dream. Right?
Yeah.
But here we are backstage. You having sat through the show, so like, can you confirm it actually did happen?
It actually, to the best of my knowledge, it actually did occur.
I thought so too.
This conversation is actually happening as far as I know. So yeah, here we are.
That's my genuine feeling on it, is like, how did this happen? It and I consider myself a realist, but it actually makes me question, like, does everything happen for a reason? Is this some sort of strange thing that was inevitable? Like, having grown up and sort of manifested it, and here I am decades later doing it, it just doesn't feel like a reasonable dream to have and then have come true.
Right.
You know, which is why as I became older and became an adult, my goal became to just be a full-time magician. That to me seemed like an outlandish goal enough.
Right.
Right? So, yeah, it actually makes me question, like, is this all some sort of, is this too much of a coincidence?
Yeah.
Is this a plan?
There's something to be said for that manifestation. Because I know in your bio and in the show, you talk about having a picture of Las Vegas on your wall as a kid. Like, this is where you wanted to end up.
Yeah, and only because the magic I was seeing on television, and Lance Burton was one of those magicians who had a Lance Burton theater here in Las Vegas, and I came to see him my first time when I came to Vegas at 12 years old, and that was when I purchased that poster at the gift shop and put it up on my wall when I got home. Yeah, it's really quite surreal.
Now that you're in Vegas, is there anything that really kind of surprised you about the city? I know other entertainers that I've talked to and people that have come here have said they're quite surprised at how supportive the entertainment community is in this city as far as other cities they've been in, whether it's LA or New York. Everybody's very competitive, not so much supportive, whereas here it's much more supportive.
Yeah, I find that locals support locals in general, in and outside of show business, because local is a tourist destination. So I find I just love the local vibe that locals take care of each other. I also think there are just a lot of misnomers about Las Vegas, right? Like, I get snow in my backyard. People don't believe that, you know? People say, oh, you're in Vegas. Like, oh, that must be so crazy. And then I have to, like, go into this explanation of it's not what you think it is, and it's a really cool local community and a vibe different from what people think of when they think of just the Strip alone. But now to the point where I feel like people are kind of glazed over when I try to explain it. So now I don't even go into it. They say, that must be crazy. Everyone's drunk all the time. I just go, yeah, that's it.
I'm drunk right now, actually. Hammered. The other thing that I know so many people have said about the city is they're surprised at how charitable the community is. And you're heavily involved. You've got a lot of different charities that you work with here.
Yeah, I jumped on doing a lot of things with animal charities when I came out here initially. So we've do this supply drive each year with the Animal Foundation. I have 4 rescue dogs and 1 rescue cat at home. That's 5 rescue pets. So we have a full house.
Yeah.
We've done a supply drive with Animal Foundation each year. We've raised over $30,000 worth of supplies for them. I won another $20,000 playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the NSPCA, and also just donated a couple of thousand meals to celebrate our 2,000 shows for Foursquare, a food bank here in Las Vegas. So I feel like it's important to give back. Speaking of that close-knit community vibe,
Right.
I enjoy being able to give back to a community that's given to us.
That's awesome. The show itself, you're coming up on 8 years here in Vegas, which is fantastic. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
You just did a big revamp on the show.
That's right.
Why was now the right time to do that?
Well, as I mentioned, I became a dad, pulled off my best trick ever on the 6th of January. So I was going to be spending about a month at home.
Mm-hmm.
So that seemed like the right time to have my team at the theater working literally around the clock to load everything out and load all the new stuff in. So new baby at home, new baby at work, all at the same time. Because why not start an entirely new production right at the same time that you have a newborn?
Perfect timing to me. It sounds great to me.
You know, maybe I'm a genius. Do you
Yeah,
think it might like classify as a genius idea?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, I would say
I don't
so,
know.
yeah. Now, how does your spouse feel about that, though? That's the big question.
No, the truth is it's a lot to take on both fronts.
Yeah.
And Tiana is such a champion on both sides of it. She was there for our reopening night and also being such a trooper and champion at home as well. It's a lot to take on, but it was kind of the only way to do it that made sense, right? If you're going to be taking a month off, it seemed like a great opportunity to load out the show and load in the new stuff that I've sort of been dreaming up for the past who knows how long. So it just seemed like the right time to do it and get it done.
Speaking of new illusions and new tricks, the question that I always have when I talk to magicians is, I mean, where do you get the inspiration for these illusions? I mean, do you just look at that object on the table and go, I bet I could do something with that?
Sometimes. I don't know if you've got... I equate it to songwriting. I think it's very much a similar process when I talk to either comedians, even joke writing, or musician friends. It can come to you when you're driving or in the shower. Inspiration can come from different places, a scene in a movie or what you see out in nature. It can kind of come from anywhere, and no two illusions were devised the same way for me. Sometimes I start with the effect, and other times I start with the aesthetic or an idea and build magic around it.
Okay.
So it really can come from anywhere.
I assume you kind of have to work this, not knowing the process on it. I assume you kind of have to work it backwards. Like, okay, I want that to appear over there. How do I get it there? And I'm guessing that's kind of the process.
Well, that's kind of like the first stage in the process to, like, if you're talking about the magic itself, how to do the trick is like kind of a prerequisite, but it's not always the part that takes the longest.
Right.
You know, if you're starting with a trick that you want to do, sometimes the harder part is finding a framing to make people care.
Okay.
Right? So a chord progression, just relating it back to something that people kind of might be able to chew on, a chord progression on a guitar might sound great, right? But it might not be enough on its own. And you need the lyrics that go with it. And then it just becomes perfect. Well, magic can be the same way, where you might have that effect that you want. This thing's going to appear, change into that. But what's the story? What's going to tie it all together? Why does someone care? If you could really do magic, is that something you would do? Maybe, maybe not. And if the answer is no, maybe explore something else, right?
You do a lot of work with audience members. It's very, very interactive at times, which is a lot of fun to see, and I would assume it's a lot of fun to do as well.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we never know what's going to happen when you bring audience members on stage, and I think that's what keeps it fresh for me. It's so much fun, and it's not like a type of performance where I'm scolding people in the audience or sort of making fun of them. It's more of a team effort where I'm bringing people up to like be able to be part of the magic and even feel like they're the ones doing the magic themselves. And Sometimes I'm bringing up groups of people, where I'll bring up 2 couples so people kind of know each other. And it just creates such a fun dynamic and an intimate environment where you kind of can't get with other art forms. So I think it's a little bit unique to what I do, even my genre of magic specifically, which is cool. So,
have you ever had it go horribly wrong?
I've had definitely unexpected things happen. I've had someone pass out on stage.
Oh my God.
That I caught, so they didn't hit the ground.
Ta-da!
I mean, listen, I don't know how you follow saving someone's life. I just don't, but I had to.
Have a good night, everybody. That's it. We're done. Yeah.
I've had lots of people show up on stage barefoot. Like lots, like way more than you'd realize. What's interesting is we have a lot of repeat customers because it's Magic Reinvented Nightly. It is a show that you could see multiple times and enjoy multiple times because different things sort of happen based on audience participation. And also the fact that we're always working on new stuff. So like I've actually pulled up audience members more than once. Like they'll come back a year later or a month later and 3 months later, and I will choose them to come on stage again out of hundreds of people in the audience somehow. And like I'll pull them up and be like, you pulled me on stage last time. I'm like, really? It's almost like I'm casting in my head, and somehow I've casted this person. It's like, yeah, you're just the person for this. Really bizarre, right?
One of the parts that I love in the show that you mentioned is the different types of people that watch magic shows and the people that are just dazzled by it all and the people that are really pissed off by it all.
Right.
I'm one of those people that kind of falls somewhere in the middle, probably more close to the pissed off by
the analytical side.
Yeah.
Let's go with analytical.
Yeah, okay, we'll go there. I'm that person that likes to be in control, and it always amazes me. I remember years ago being at a show, and I was emceeing a magician show backstage, and I watched the girl climb into the box backstage, and then later watched her come out of the box and still couldn't figure out how it was done.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Drives me nuts.
Okay.
So, I mean, I imagine being able to dazzle people and wonder people like that that's a lot of fun.
It is. It's not my favorite part of it is really being able to convey like an underlying message, right? So like a movie, like I talk about in the show, special effects in a movie are really spectacular and cool, but without the story, they're just special effects. And I feel the same way about magic. Without story, without moving the audience with something other than just surprise or wow, it becomes just that. I think both are equally important, which is why I wanted to revamp the production. I really want the production value to fire on the same caliber as the magic, which is hard to do. But yeah, it's fun. I love all aspects of magic, whether it be the mystery, the surprise, the fun, or the vehicle for sharing stories.
Getting into magic today, do you think it's easier or more difficult now for people to get in? Just because I know there's so many different platforms out there now for people to share what they're doing, whether they're on social media and doing that, or they're on YouTube or whatever. Does that make it easier, or does that make it more difficult?
I think it's easier to find mentors, with the way information is shared. It's easier to find people to help you learn. It's easier to find sources to learn from. It's harder to discern which information is accurate, helpful information. If
somebody's got a budding magician in the family, what can they do to really encourage and foster that talent?
I think, well, one word I already said is encourage it. If it's something that they really have a knack for and enjoy doing, encourage it. Magic books are a great way to learn. There are a number of YouTube channels people can learn from. My inspiration growing up, who I mentioned already, Jeff McBride, actually has a McBride Magic and Mystery School, which you don't have to come to Las Vegas to learn from. There are virtual classes and seminars and lots of different things. There's another one called Tannen's Magic Camp. Lots of different ways for people to learn. But I think the first step is to just take the plunge and begin and see how you enjoy it. All it takes is one magic book, and you can learn from that one book for a very, very long time. So much information is baked in there.
Excellent. Thank you for taking time to jump on and have the conversation with me again. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. Enjoy your time in Vegas.
And that wraps up another episode of Jeff Does Vegas. If you've got feedback on this episode of the show, or any other episode for that matter, or you've got suggestions and ideas for topics you'd like me to cover on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas. Or drop me an email directly at jeff@jeffdoesvegas.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment new episodes are available. And don't forget to visit jeffdoesvegas.com for past episodes and show notes. My name is Jeff, and this has been Jeff Does Vegas, a Walker New Media production.